Hi, friends. Welcome to the Mobile Bev Pros podcast, a podcast dedicated to providing mobile bar professionals with the information they need to succeed. I'm your host and fellow mobile bar owner, Sarah Murphy. Each episode, I'll be bringing you interviews, knowledge, anecdotes, or opinions with the goal of assisting you in building a profitable, sustainable, and scalable mobile bar business that will support the lifestyle you dream of. I'm excited for today's episode, so let's get started.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Mobile Bev Pros podcast. My name is Dawn, COO and Chief Alchemist for Mobile Bev Pros, and today I'm going to be interviewing our very own Sarah Murphy on the importance of visibility. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, I love being interviewed on this podcast. I did one a couple of episodes back, and I think that one might be one of the most listened to episodes that we've done. So apparently people really like when I'm not the one leading the conversation.
Yeah, probably because we get to extract all of your gold, and you have so much gold to share with us and with the community, obviously. And so today I want to extract gold around visibility, because what we've seen in the industry is that new and upcoming mobile bars, or maybe even mobile bars who have been in business for a while, they tend to put visibility on the back burner, something that they'll address later. And they're either implementing what they know and it's not producing results, or they're not implementing a visibility strategy at all. And we actually saw a great example of this in our most recent podcast that you did with Amanda Allison from Behind the Party.
We had her on because I wanted to hear straight from a venue owner about the experience of working with mobile bars. It is part of the default when mobile bars start their business that they start to reach out to venues to try and get on their quote unquote preferred vendor lists. And there's a right and a wrong way to do that. And so I wanted to talk to somebody who was a venue owner to kind of talk more about that. But during that conversation, she shocked me when she said that she has been in business for a number of years, and she is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which we happen to intimately know there are about 100 mobile bars in that area, and that only 2 had ever reached out to her directly. It floored me. I'm still surprised about it, mainly because one of the foundations of the strategy that we utilize and we teach mobile bar owners is cold outreach, and to focus on those amplifiers, which are the venue owners, the event planners, the caterers, those sorts of people. And so for there to be 100 mobile bars currently active in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and her to be fairly centrally located, she's not even like super rural, and only 2 mobile bars to have reached out, indicated to me that while people are committed to visibility in some way, shape, or form, they're not necessarily committed to the formats of visibility that are the most effective.
Yeah, and I know you also walked away from that interaction really excited for the fact that she validated, not that you needed that, but that she validated so many core pieces of the structure that you teach around a good visibility strategy. And it's just a shame because we have so many members in the academy, a lot of them in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and so many people in our community that are not paid members that have access to this information, and they're just not executing. So can you tell me a little bit about what an amplifier is? When you use that word and you say it's venues and it's event planners, give me the definition of what an amplifier is.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is a term that I heard once and clung to, or if it's one that I absolutely made up. So I have no claim to it, but my personal definition of an amplifier is someone who you can make a connection with, and they will then amplify your message. So when you're focusing a lot of your visibility work on brides, for example, you're going to need to do a lot of outreach to get 50 brides to see you, to know who you are and what you do and how you serve. Whereas if you hit up one event planner that's in alignment with your ideal client, that event planner has access to 50 brides. And so that one connection can be as valuable as you reaching out to 50 individual brides. And so since I'm all about efficiency, I'm all about optimizing use of funds and resources and energy, it makes sense to me to focus visibility strategies on making the most amount of connections that we can with amplifiers. And now amplifiers are going to look different in every single industry, but in this particular industry, mobile bars, it oftentimes looks like any other fellow vendors. So venues, event planners, photographers, caterers, DJs, your chamber of commerce, anybody who is in your network that is connected to lots of your ideal clients.
And so we do have a visibility workshop coming up. It is going to be the first time we've ever ran it virtually. So many people asked for a virtual version of this workshop, and we decided that was the best course of action moving forward. And so we are going to have a virtual visibility workshop on May 1st from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And everyone can tune in and listen if they purchase a ticket. Those are $200 off, by the way, if you purchase it before the day of. And today I want to extract that gold from you. And I want to talk about what are you going to be teaching and why each one of those staples in the process is so pivotal. So the very first thing that you teach is becoming audacious in your marketing. Can you tell me why that's such a big deal?
Yeah. And actually, I want to rewind just a little bit into something that you said earlier. And that is that oftentimes we have mobile bars that come to us and they're asking the question, I'm showing up all the places, but I'm not seeing results. Or how do I get booked? I've launched, I've been at this for a little while, and I'm just not seeing the amount of bookings that I need or that I would like to at this point. And every single time, upon asking a few questions, like, well, what are you currently doing? There's two common threads that come out of the responses almost every time. One is that they're focusing the vast majority of their visibility efforts on social media. And the second is that they are only filling in the gaps in their time with visibility work, meaning they will do all the other things that they feel like needs to be done on a given day on or for their business. And then whatever time they have left at the end of the day, it's 10:30 at night, they're scrolling the gram, they're on TikTok, whatever that is, that's where they kind of fit in whatever limited amount of visibility work that they have. Or even if they're doing it at the beginning of the day, they're doing it in a way that's like, I got to check this off my list so that I can then get on with my day. And then people tend to have a ton of anxiety around what they're going to say, how they're going to show up. Is it enough? And I think anyone who's ever tried to create a visibility strategy on social media knows and resonates with what I mean by, is this enough? Am I doing it in the right places? Am I posting at the right times? Am I posting the right song on this? Am I in my stories enough for the algorithm? I've seen all sorts of strategies. To answer your question, the reason that we start these workshops with the concept of audacity is because the biggest shift that we see bring the biggest results for mobile bars and probably all business owners is the willingness to show up bolder and more frequently. And that requires a bit of a mindset shift. I think we come at our marketing and our visibility oftentimes from a place of we don't really want to bother anybody. We only want to provide content that we think is going to go viral or add a ton of value. And that's part of it, sure. But we also want to show up often. And especially if we're showing up on something like social media, which tends to be everybody's favorite methodology of visibility work, especially before they come to the visibility workshop, we're beholden to the algorithms. And just because you post something doesn't mean all your 8,000 followers, like maybe 20 people, 100 people might see that post. And so we can't rely on the algorithm to show all of our content to the people who actually want and need to see it. And so frequency is really important, and letting go of that thought that, I'm showing up too much, so we got to get rid of that. And then the next is the willingness to show up more authentically, because that is what's going to set you and your business apart from every other mobile bar that's out there. Because there's only so many white horse trailers and camper bars that people can see before they all start looking the same and people get confused. And so you have to have something about your business that isn't about your bar, and it isn't about the fact that you elevate the bar experience. Because everyone says that. If I had $1 for every time someone who wrote me a mission statement for their mobile bar and they said, we elevate the bar experience or we offer a unique experience, I could retire, because we all want to do that, right? But how are we doing that? In what ways are we doing that that's different than every other mobile bar trying to achieve those things? And so we go over very deeply in these visibility workshops exactly what it looks like to show up audaciously within your business, and why, how, when, all the good, juicy parts about Audacity.
That was so good, Sarah. Thank you so much. And then so after that, we're going to get really clear on who your ideal client is. Why is ideal client work so important? And actually, we were just talking about this because we have a project that we're working on for a done for you client. And she had to get super clear on who her ideal candidate would be for a job. And then we had to hold the line that person existed, even though she didn't necessarily believe that they existed. And so you can do the same thing with your ideal client. Can you explain to me why ideal client work is so pivotal and how it changes the game for a mobile bar?
Yeah, so ideal client work is important because if you're trying to be all things to all people, you're going to be nothing for everybody. And that's not a concept that we came up with, but it is a concept that remains true. And new mobile bars, especially, they get into business and they just want to book parties. And so there's a little bit of a scramble sometimes to be like, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. Boho weddings over here and super urban modern weddings over here. And so we can do all of those things. But what they're failing to look at is that we don't really care what the actual event looks like, whether it's boho or it's modern. We want to know who is booking those events. We've had a little bit of this work, especially in our group program, in that when we're doing pricing and packaging and people do the math on how much they actually need to be charging in order to be making enough money for this to be a business and not just a hobby that they pay to do every Friday and Saturday, they sometimes have to climb the ideal client ladder, meaning they may have been focused on affordable or budget weddings, or maybe they were a preferred vendor at this particular venue that would attract more moderate budget brides, for example. But the amount that they can afford for a bar experience isn't enough to pay the bills ultimately for the mobile bar. And so we have to climb the ideal client ladder. And what that looks like is sometimes reframing what you're offering that's of value, because the things that people value in one ideal client pool might be different than what people are valuing in another client pool. And so we spend a lot of time in this workshop actually going through the process of identifying the ideal client. And I think it's important to also mention that the reason that this workshop is an entire day is, one, we are trying to get people in the mindset of working on their business for a full day. It's very easy for us to put out a podcast and then you to be like, okay, I got to identify my ideal client. And then that sits in your brain for a while. And then 3 weeks from now, you're still posting on social media, you're still doing your networking, and you haven't actually internalized or done anything with creating your ideal client profile. And so this workshop is meant to give 8 hours of undivided attention working on your business and doing the work as we go over these concepts. So we're going to teach about something like ideal client, and then there'll be a workbook and a worksheet, and then you'll actually go and do the work of putting in all the things. And so by the time you walk away from this workshop, you're not just rattling around the concept of ideal client in your head. You have an actual worksheet that has outlined exactly who your ideal client is and how to actually utilize that in your visibility strategy.
Oh, that's so good. We really actually take it from the realm of thought and feeling, which is what a lot of webinars and workshops do. They get your wheels spinning, right? You get all inspired and you have a fire in your belly, and then it just dies because you don't ever actually bring it earthside. You don't ever bring it into matter, into an actual strategy that you can implement in the world. So I really love that. And I do want to back up a second because we didn't talk about, well, you touched on it, but we didn't talk about my very favorite thing of this entire workshop. It's my favorite thing every single time, which is values. Because one thing that we do in the workshop is that we have people get really clear on their values. And that then is the foundation for absolutely everything in their business. It's the foundation of your branding, your marketing. It's the foundation of your ideal client, who you're talking to, and then who you are to your ideal client. Can you touch on values and tell us why is that the cornerstone?
Yeah, this is actually one of the parts that people find the hardest to do. And to your point, it is the most important. And the reason people find it to be really hard is because we're forcing them to contain their messaging. We're forcing them to actually point at the hills that they are willing to die on as a company. And when you're first getting started out, that's scary because people want to be flexible. They want to be available for anybody because they don't want to have to turn people away. But the important thing is to recognize it's not about turning people away. It's about identifying the things that are so important to you that it'll drive the type of business that you do, how you do your business, and when you're going to say no. So we're forming boundaries when we create and identify our values. And then we utilize those values to infuse in all of our marketing. And that's really important because if you are forward facing with your values, the people who share those values are going to see themselves in your marketing and they're going to resonate with your brand. And when you do work together, you're going to be like, my clients are just the best. How do I have just the best clients? And it's because you've told them what you value and they're resonating on some level. Oh, I value that too. And so they become much easier to work with because you have aligned values. If you haven't identified the values that are important to you and in how you're going to show up, then there can be misaligned expectations. There can be more of those unideal clients. And there just isn't as much resonance between your marketing and the people that are receiving and hearing your marketing. Because one of the other things that we mentioned is that people make buying decisions based on emotion. So if you have very bland marketing and messaging that isn't actually connecting with people or evoking some sort of emotion, then it's noise to them. Like people are bombarded with marketing messages all the time, but you're not always hearing or registering those things. Only the things that spark an emotion make you stop scrolling or make you stop and listen. And so the things that evoke emotion in people are usually the things that either align with or trigger their value system.
And we see this a lot in the Facebook groups where people are attracting, or even in our Achieve group, not so much in the Exceed groups, but in our Achieve group, and people that come to this visibility workshop they're dealing with people who can't afford them, or they're trying to haggle their prices. They're like in constant conversation around like trying to validate the value of their bar experience. And when you get really aligned on your values and you use that as the foundation, that then becomes all these other pieces, all these other pillars, who your ideal client is, how you speak to them, and how you show up in your marketing. You eliminate those people a lot of the times because they're not going to resonate when you're really clear. Now, when you don't have boundaries, like you said, because you're cutting people off, when you do this work, what you're saying is, this is who I'm for, and this is who I'm not for. And that's good boundaries. And if you don't have good boundaries, all that leaky energy is attracting just anybody. Everybody and their mama is coming in and they're like, hey, can you do an event for 600 people for $500? And you're like, what? No, you're 3 hours away from me. And they're like, well, I'll put you up in a hotel for half a night and my cousin can bartend for you. And it's because you're not being really clear about who you're talking to and who you are to them and the value that your service brings. You always say that mobile bars are a luxury service. And if you're not seeing it that way, then this visibility workshop is going to help you reframe not only how your ideal clients see you, but how you see you. And that changes everything.
Yeah, this is an expensive business to have. And that sometimes catches people off guard because they're like, but wait, you actually don't need a mobile bar to get started. And you could just do this with like a 6-foot table and a tablecloth. What do you mean by that? What I mean by that is that this is an expensive business to be in if you're going to do it properly. And that requires oftentimes commissary kitchen, insurance, commercial insurance, W-2ing your employees, right? That's a lot of what we teach here at Mobile Bev Pros is how to do this business properly and professionally. And the costs start to add up. And so if you're not considering yourself a luxury service and you're just a mobile bartending service, then you can do this pretty inexpensively. And that's the people who can go out there and they can do this type of work for $25, $30 an hour. But that's not what we teach. We teach how to do this professionally and in a way that can make you great money and become a career and a thriving business. And if you're going to do that, you have to be willing to identify with a luxury service, and you have to be willing to charge more than you ever thought that you would need to charge in order to do this. And we do have a number of clients that struggle when they do the math at looking at that new price point and saying, how could I possibly charge these rates? But in every case, and Don, you can attest to this because we've seen it over and over again, we make them raise their prices as much as we can make anyone do anything. And it doesn't take very long for someone to book them at those new prices and for them to gain a whole new level of confidence in those prices. Oftentimes, we're subconsciously undervaluing what we're doing, thinking that nobody will pay more. And we just reflect back, well, there's people paying more all the time. You can look back and hear me say over and over again, I was booking events when I was charging $5 an hour, and I was booking events when I was charging $50 an hour. And there's something for everybody out there. It's never about the price, always about value. And value almost is a symptom of price. If people don't see the value in it, they won't buy it. But if they see value in it, they'll buy it no matter what the price is. That's why we have cars at every price point out there, and they all do the same thing. They all just roll down the road.
It's so good. It's so good. I used to, in my retail days, tell my leaders, stop shopping out of your own pocket because they weren't hitting quota. They weren't hitting their sales goals. And when we would go in and I would listen to their sales conversations, if a customer was looking at the items we had on the top shelf, they would be like, oh, this one's just as good and it's $25 cheaper. Why would you say that? And it's because that's the curling iron they could afford. And so if you stop shopping out of your own pocket, what you'll find is that, again, like you said, if you can demonstrate your value and you can see the value in what you offer, other people are willing to pay any price point at all. So the next thing that you dive into in the visibility strategy is your brand strategy, developing your brand strategy and how you attract and book your ideal client. We kind of already touched on this because we've been in it for a minute, but do you have anything for us around developing your brand strategy?
We teach brand strategy in this workshop because it's great to know your values. It's great to know who your ideal client is, but then we need to know how to nurture people from, I don't know who you are, to I'm a raving fan. And that requires a little bit of strategy because not everybody comes at the buying process from the same place psychologically. And also not everybody comes to the buying experience ready to make the sale immediately. So we need strategies to meet people where they're at, both from a psychological place and also from an operational place as to like, how eager are they to pull out their credit card and make a buying decision in that moment. And so this part of the workshop helps people create strategies for those different types of people in the different stages of their buying experience.
So hot leads, warm leads, cold leads, and then you also have different types of buyers. There's 3, right?
Yeah, so there's cold leads, warm leads, and hot leads, but then there's also intuitive buyers, intellectual buyers, and willful buyers. And so we're going to walk people through how to identify each and then how to convert or nurture each from, I don't know who you are, to take my credit card.
Love that. And then we move into the content pillars, which are just so sexy. And this is the part where everybody starts doing the work, right? So we've been doing work, we've been taking notes, we've been like identifying values and things. But this is the part in the visibility workshop where the strategy really starts to come together. And that's through creating your content pillars.
Content pillars give us the ability to know what to say. And sometimes people overcomplicate this because what am I going to say today? Or what are the type of things that people want to hear from me? And we make this really simple by walking through a content pillar exercise that is rinse and repeat. You create this once, and then literally you just follow the plan every 28 days, every 30 days, just show up and say the same type of thing in a slightly different way. And it feels new and fresh to the people that are receiving that information.
So good. So no more creating content from scratch every single day, all day long. Creating your content pillars really gives you something to lean on when you're not sure what you should be posting about. And it prevents you from just throwing spaghetti at the wall every single Monday. And then we move into the multi-pronged visibility recipe. This creates massive amounts of impactful content quickly and easily. Tell me a little bit about the multi-pronged visibility approach and why you love it so much.
Yeah. So I love the multi-pronged visibility approach for 2 reasons. 1, it doesn't put all your eggs in one basket. And 2, it prioritizes the type of visibility work that will get you the most amount of benefits, the most amount of impact for the least amount of energy and money. And then it works your way down from there. So as I mentioned earlier in this episode, we oftentimes see that people leave their visibility work for whatever energy or whatever time they have left at the end of the day. But the reality is that visibility work, especially if you're in your first 2 years of business, should be the primary thing that you're working on. Because if you've started this business, you needed to start making money. And it will only start making money if people know who you are and how to work with you. And you can't just post on Instagram and hope that happens. Even if you post on Instagram and you get 10,000 followers in a relatively small amount of time, you're a localized business. And that means that you would need the vast majority of the people that are following you to be in your immediate area in order for their follow count to mean anything to you. And so what we want to do is we want to focus on things that are going to attract and convert the people in your immediate area and that are the most aligned with your ideal client and are willing to pay you what it is that you want to make. And we have found that there is a specific recipe that if you follow has the maximum amount of results. And so when you're just getting started and you might not have a ton of time to work on visibility, like we want to point out exactly what you should be doing and which ones you should be prioritizing. And hopefully that will mean when you're giving your visibility strategy, whatever scraps of time and attention you have, you're seeing more return than you would if you were just posting on Instagram or remembering to throw up a story every day or 9 times a day, I think was the most recent one that I heard, something like that. And that can really take a lot out of people trying to figure out, well, what 9 things am I going to post today? Or even what 1 thing on Instagram am I going to post? When ultimately, I'm not saying social media doesn't have a place in the visibility strategy. It's just at the bottom for me. And the visibility strategy that we teach. I even had someone text me yesterday who came to the last mobile bar visibility strategy that we did in California. She basically said, I've been implementing the strategy that we learned in the workshop, and we're already seeing results.
And we've seen it work again and again. And so we do invite all of you to check out the visibility workshop that's coming up on May 1st. It is outside of the Mobile Bar Academy, right? So it's not included for members because it's a whole day workshop. It's a separate thing entirely. And it's going to be absolutely amazing as it has been in the past. We've already done it 3 times in the past, live and in person. Every time people walk away with their minds just blown, maybe a little bit melted as well, because learning for 8 hours can be intense. But then after, you walk away with a strategy that you can implement and start seeing those results tomorrow.
Yeah, I do want to say that the concepts we cover in the visibility strategy are touched on in the academy in the same way that we touch on a lot of things in the academy. Like we are laying out the concepts of the various different things that we talk about. This workshop is really designed to help people go from that intellectual, okay, I understand the theory of cold outreach, into this is exactly how to do the cold outreach. This is a template of an email that you can utilize, but now I want you to customize it to your bar and how you can implement that. And then we're going through and we're doing it, and you're doing it alongside both myself and you. So when you have questions, you can ask, and then we can guide you so that you don't get stuck. And that's what I oftentimes see with the academy, is that unless you're really committed to doing the work and the assignments that are at the end of every lesson, it just kind of stays in the head for some people. So if you're one of those people that really needs to work alongside someone, or in a scenario where you're being held accountable to actually produce the work, then this workshop is perfect for that. In reference to people's brain being fried after a full day of learning, that is inevitable. Hopefully, I experience this too, because I go to quarterly full day intensives with the coaching program I'm in, and they're 2 days long. And by the end of it, I literally feel like I have no capacity for anything. But then the day after, I am so activated. I'm so activated because I'm able to integrate all of this information in a way that I see a path forward. And we've had people provide us with that same feedback, that by the end of the day, they're a little mind numbed in that there's so much information, but we've also provided a very structured manner in which they can execute those things. And so while it may take a day or two for them to be like, okay, hangover over, at least they'll have a plan and an actual, okay, this is what I do first, this is what I do second, this is what I do third. And the thing that I love most about this program is that you'll start to see impact and results almost immediately. This isn't something where you're going to do this, build your social media following, and in 9 months, you'll finally have a big enough follower count where it actually makes a difference every time you post something. No, you're going to start seeing impacts and immediate results as soon as you start implementing it. And that's the most rewarding part.
And so as of right now, the time of this recording, there's approximately 3 weeks for people to purchase their tickets at the $200 off. And this is the lowest price point we have ever offered for this visibility workshop. And then after May 1st, they can purchase tickets to watch the replay. The disadvantage is A, you've lost that $200 savings, and B, you can't ask your questions live anymore. And so there's not going to be as much support, hands-on accountability. You're not walking with us. Whereas if you purchase your tickets prior to May 1st, then on May 1st, when Sarah and I do this live from Colorado, you'll be able to live stream while you're there and ask your questions. And that just makes all the difference because we can answer you in real time.
Yeah. So if you feel like your marketing or visibility strategy is lacking at all, then there is no better workshop specific to mobile bars out there at all. And so this workshop is valuable. It will pay for itself many times over. It's a proven curriculum. This isn't something that we just made up. We've executed this workshop 3 times and it's gotten better every time. And it's guaranteed. So I'm excited to release it one more time. And this time virtually, so people all over the world can participate. And it's going to be a ton of fun. So I hope people join.
Yeah, and the advantage is that they have access to the replay, which no one has from the live events. You can't replay a live event. And so that's just wonderful because if there's any section that you wanted to touch back on, you can go back and you can watch that on your own time. And so, Sarah, thank you so much for offering all the value that you offer to this community. I know I am absolutely honored to be a part of the community because it is the most kick-ass community I've ever been a part of. And I know everybody appreciates how much value you share for free, as well as those deeper, intensive opportunities to work closer with you. Do you have any last words for us today?
If you've learned anything from this particular episode, I want it to be that the key to increasing your sales and success as a mobile bar is to show up more and to show up louder and to show up more authentically. And as much as you think that you are showing up already, it's probably not enough.
And we circle right back to audacity. All right, Sarah, thank you so much for letting me interview you today. And guys, we will catch you in the Facebook group or in the Academy or back here on the podcast, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Thanks, Don.
And that wraps up today's episode. I hope it was valuable. I would love to hear from you what you thought. You can drop me a line at hello@mobilebevpros.com or find me on Instagram at mobilebevpros. If you're looking for more valuable mobile bar related content, we have a website full of it. You can find us at www.mobilebevpros.com. And I'd love to see you in our Facebook community, also by the name of, you guessed it, Mobile Bev Pros. Thank you for joining me today. And until next time, cheers.